Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples that handle dates um, with more complete syntax. So here we are creating a table, and this table is going to store dates, uh, especially here, right? So not much is happening, just current timestamp instantiated with the type timestamp. So given the previous query, we can insert some values into those into the structure. So here what we see is an entry into the example timestamp, and right, we are basically entering uh, some string into our table, and that value goes into the data column. So that is the connection, right? The data is the name of the column, and then we are entering something in there. Now, the other columns obviously have um, some automatic job to do. So the ID was auto increment, so it's taken care of. And then the timestamp, well, it's a timestamp, so it gets executed once you insert something into that table. So to verify that, let's take a look at the select statement. And here you see that um, the ID has been auto-incremented, the data column has been populated with our string, and then the timestamp, although my insert statement didn't say anything about it, has been created. So it's kind of also some sort of an auto increment or auto execute uh, type of the column, which is perfect for um, lots of applications involving log keeping and transactional stuff. Now, to verify that this is exactly what we anticipated, let's do an update statement on this first row. So let's change something, let's say the current timestamp is, and then where the ID is 1. So let's execute, and let's check the query. So there is the time was 20:45, and now was the time was 20 uh, 8 p.m. and 50 minutes. So yes, the auto increments and the timestamps kind of get updated every time you touch the row with an update statement. Now, what if we don't want to update the date every time we touch a record, but we would like to take advantage of the timestamp capability so that it creates a timestamp, but kind of only once. So here is an example of a different table, example default now, and we are creating a timestamp with the default now syntax. So let's take a look at our results. So let's first enter something into the table. So let's execute an insert. That insert again just involves adding one value into the data column. And that's the output. So clearly we have a date created through the timestamp. So the time is 8:55:21. So now let's update that row. So let's enter some other string into the first row, and let's check the date, whether it has changed like it did before, or whether it's going to stay the same because we have the now attribute with the timestamp. So I rerun the select statement, And this column has changed because I updated it, but the timestamp column did not change. So my basically timing information remains the same no matter how many updates I will execute now. So this might be an interesting behavior that could be utilized in some context. Now, like I mentioned, the time zone or localization of the system is important. So it can be handled on the client side or on the application side, but also it can be handled on the database side. So, for example, here you are looking at the syntax that changes the time zone of the system. So what will happen is that now if I rerun the select statements that I just used a moment ago, I will receive the different time, especially different hour values. So let's rerun the select statement. Right. So after changing the time zone, see, I have a different value here. So again, we can change it to, let's say, 0. Right, execute the query. Right, and again let's re-execute the select statement. So from 6 I went to 3. So obviously you will specify the time so that it's matching appropriately your conditions, and this way you will be able to probably maybe make your database time compatible with your application server time, which is probably the best solution. Especially given the fact that the timestamp generates the time for you. It's not like, this is a very convenient convenient utility in SQL, but it's not like you can control it. So setting the time zone, it's kind of indirectly controls some of the aspects, of what is the hour being stored in this field. Now let's take a look at a few other scenarios that involve building some sort of a decision-making process based on the dates. So what you are looking at is a query that selects rows based on a time interval between the current date and the interval being basically distance from the current day 30 days back. So anything in here, right, is going to be basically enclosed in an interval, and the meaning of this statement is that we want to be selecting any row that has been created within the 30 days of the date stored in the table. Now, alternatively, we might be interested in another statement that, for example, looks in the future. So here we have an interval that will be generated from, let's say, the date stored in the database. So you see here on the left side, that's the created existing date, and we would like to have an interval that looks 45 days in the future. And let's say maybe it's going to be a payment or something like that. So that date on the left plus 45 days interval is going to give us that particular date. So in this scenario we are looking in the future. And here one more example with the date sub. This time again good comparison, side by side, current date existing in the through the timestamp, generated through the timestamp, and the subtracted interval from the current date, and that's a 45 days back, right? So instead of having a where statement, which kind of clouds a little bit how the date looks like, here we are simply displaying. So of course this is a date, right? This highlighted part generates a date, so it could be part of the clause for the where statement. And one more scenario here. Obviously, you see that the date type is quite substantial syntax. You see the timestamp involves hyphens and spaces and colons. So what if I would like to have a criterion that is going to be, for example, involving, let's say, the date that you are looking at, so 2013, March 12th. So I would like to match my timestamp, and obviously, it is not a complete match, string-wise, but the syntax that we are looking at, right, kind of accomplish that task, because we can use the date function that is going to be basically retrieve the date and give us a comparison to meaningful comparison, even if it is not a string exact comparison. So here I'm saying that I want to specify a specific date information, right? And if I change it, I don't retrieve, right? So let me switch back. And in this scenario here, we added a count. So the idea is that perhaps we would like to retrieve the number of, let's say, events or transactions that have been executed on a given day. So here we added a function that perhaps we didn't use so far, select count, which gave us the opportunity to basically count the number of occurrences for a given event.